We ready to shoot the next scene?
Make yourself at home, bro.
What? I don't get to do this in other people's garages. If you look up the word detail in the dictionary, most likely you will find a picture of our next wrench head, Leigh Scott. And yes, our last names are the same. That's because he's my brother. Today we will be talking to Leigh about his passion for restoring cars. What makes him so unique is his obsession with 1966 Chevrolets, in particular 427 big block powered Caprice Classics and Impala convertibles. We grew up on the east side of Detroit, and right at a time when the big three were in their heated battle for dominance in the muscle car wars. And as a young kid, Leigh was hooked on anything with four wheels. He just simply loved cars. He actually started out building model cars and became very talented at that. But even when it was time to get behind the wheel of a real one, Leigh shifted gears and the art of building and restoring cars was about to get underway. The obsession, the passion, the detail, well, you just have to see for yourself. Let's meet Leigh.
I was fairly young when I realized that I had an interest in cars, probably 2 or 3 years old. Used to take the chalk and draw streets on the driveway in front of my grandparents' house and play with all my Matchbox cars. My first car was a 1964 Dodge Polara, which I acquired from my grandfather. He sold it to me. It was a very nice car, but you know, growing up in the 60s, you just couldn't leave a car alone. Had the car about a week. First thing I did was cut the exhaust system off of it. My grandfather looked at me and says, "That exhaust system's only about 6 months old." Well, Gramps, I got to have some hush thrush on there, so got some flex pipe, some thrush mufflers, put it on there. Also went down to Kmart, bought chrome reverse wheels for 10 bucks a piece. Can you believe that? Slapped those on the car with some baby moons. It was quite fun, and most of my influence came from all the guys I grew up in the neighborhood. So I found this 56 Chevy when I was down going to school in Kentucky. I bought it from a guy down there. It was fairly ratty. I dragged the thing home, and you know, just being influenced by all my friends and going to the Autorama and seeing beautiful cars, I wanted one like that too. And I wanted to put my personal touches on it, and also wanted to learn how to paint a car. So that was the first car that I ever painted. And it turned out quite well. In fact, I took it to the Autorama in 1976 and won second place in my category. And that was the bug that bit me to work on cars. So after my 56 Chevy, I worked on various other cars. Then I got into 66 Chevrolets.
Hey, bro.
Hey, bro, what's happening? How are you?
The convertible is really coming along nice.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate that.
One thing that amazes people about your restorations is the amount of detail that you put into them.
Yeah, thanks. Well, you know what I try to do when I restore these cars is I try to make them exactly the way that Chevrolet produced them back in 1966.
And where do you research the exact detail and the specifications that you put into them?
Well, I've been very fortunate. I've had access to a lot of original unrestored cars. That Bel Air that I used to own was a 10,000 mile original unrestored car. And then through work, I've had access to a lot of original photographs, you know, when the cars were produced in 1966. So I could see things like, you know, how things were plated originally, some of the details as far as the chalk marks and such. And for example, on this car right here, you notice the chalk marks, it says 813 and 2. What that actually meant, 813 was actually the trim combination for the black interior, which shows up on the trim tag. It just made it easier for the assembler as he was walking up to the car to say, "Oh wow, what color interior is this car take?" You know, little details like that where most people that restore cars don't go to that trouble to put that stuff back on again.
And I know with you, if it's not original equipment from 1966, it doesn't wind up on this car.
I've tried to find the original stuff. Working with the NOS parts and stuff as far as plating. You know, if I need the correct finish on something, if I can't find an NOS part, I'll take an original used part. I'll use my sandblaster here, I'll clean the part off, and then I send it out to get it totally replated. All the nuts and bolts, all the clips, these bolts right here for the horn, that's an original bolt that I had replated.
Amazing.
Same thing with these. These are not reproduction. It's stuff that I've actually taken off the car, cleaned it, inspected for condition. If it's a piece of junk, I throw it out. But that's why, over the years of, stripping cars and restoring them, I collect extra nuts and bolts just in case I happen to have bad fasteners. I love my '56 Chevy, but one of the problems I had with it, it was my only car. I drove it all the time. Even though it was an Autorama winner, I didn't have anything else to drive. And I ran across this 1966 Chevy Caprice, original owner car. And God, was it nice. And I bought the car, started to drive it, and realized, man, this car is too nice to beat. I figured, next thing you know, I'm trying to save that one for the winter. And once I really started to get into the car, I realized how interesting they were. I've always been a fan of cars from the Bill Mitchell era. In 1965, Bill Mitchell had a real impact on a lot of the General Motors cars, and if you look at a '66 Chevrolet, it has this look of a athlete in a tailored suit. Bulging quarters, but very crisp lines, and I love that look. And once I got into the car and really started to enjoy it, I found that there was other things, other aspects, collectibles, things like model cars, which I was already into model cars, other toys, literature, other collectibles that just really piqued my interest in going to all the different swap meets and car shows. I would see this stuff out there, and like anybody that has a passion, I started buying that stuff. Some of the collectibles that I've managed to collect over the years, obviously, is all these different cars and toys, but some of the ones that are quite rare is I've got this '66 Impala Super Sport slot car. Very, very rare. I've got one up here in the box. But most of these cars, as you can see with these are all the promo cars that the dealers would pass out to people when you purchased a new car. Most of these cars I purchased at swap meets and car shows like Carlisle. This is way before the advent of eBay. Now today, most of these cars were, a couple of dollars. These model cars were $2 a piece when you could buy them. Now on eBay, they're going anywhere from $200 to $250. Other collectibles I have, believe it or not, is here I've got a Chevrolet Sucker. Now, imagine how many of these laid around, because I'm sure little Timmy or Susie, when Daddy got this, Timmy or Susie would usually eat this. So it's kind of rare to find one still in a wrapper. Other things that usually disappeared were matchbooks. I have a lot of stuff like this, but all this little, what I call trinkets and trash, the kinds of things that never really survived, would get used every day. But anything that had 66 on it or was related to 66 Chevrolets, I've managed to collect. Another kind of rare and desirable car that I have is, believe it or not, this car was made in Argentina. And what it is, essentially, is a tin toy. Now, you can also remember when we had tin toys as a child, but I managed to find these on a trip down to South America for business one time. Another unique thing that I have for '66 is the product training kit. This was called the communications kit. It was sent to all Chevrolet dealers, and basically what it was a training kit for the salesman. This particular one here introduces the new 1966 Chevrolets, and inside it has the film strips, records, all the detail that a salesman would need to learn about the new cars for the '66 model year.
The Caprice nameplate was first introduced in February 1965 as a trim-level option on the Impala four-door hardtop. It was developed to compete with the newly introduced Ford LTD. In 1966, the Caprice moved into its own model line with a four-door hardtop, a station wagon, and a new two-door hardtop model with a formal roofline. This was the first GM product to have a more upright rear quarter window, which set the trend for future GM two-door models like the Monte Carlo and the Olds 98s. 1966 was also the first year for the 427 big block rat motor. First introduced in 1965 as a 396, it was bored out to 427 cubic inches for the 66 model year. The 427 featured 2 horsepower ratings, a 390 horsepower version with a hydraulic camshaft, and a high-performance version rated at 425 horsepower with a solid lifter cam. These engines with the same horsepower ratings were also used in the Corvettes. In 1966, only 1,856 cars came optioned with the 425 horsepower version. Both of these engine options made up less than 1% of the total full-size passenger car production orders for 1966. In total, almost 1.5 million full-size Chevrolets were built. Out of that, a little over 107,000 were Caprice 2-door hardtops. Production for all of these cars was spread out over 13 assembly plants. This is certainly one rare automobile. Well, bro, you had told me because this convertible is rare and so detailed, you've been invited to Concours d'Elegance this year. Are you going to be ready?
Yes, I have been invited, and that's the challenge, trying to get the engine done.
So here we have the 427 big block out of the convertible.
Yeah, this is the one I had the engine knock with, and I started to look at it. I haven't really figured out what's wrong with it yet, but when I started looking at some of the main
The bolts are all loose.
Yeah, maybe that's the problem. But anyways, when I started looking, I see a little bit of, oh, shit.
Oh, shit. You say shit.
Take 2.
Okay, thumbs, don't drop the bolt inside the motor this time.
Maybe you should hang on to it. Oh, shit. Oh, I didn't mean to do that one.
No. You need a long manual or something. Son of a bitch.
Take 4. Action.
Okay, this time don't touch the bolts, okay? I know because it's such a rare engine, you don't want a grenaded blowing rods out the side, but obviously you've got a few stacked up in the garage.
Well, yeah, I got to get into it to figure out what's on. I do have a couple other ones, but I'd really like to continue to use this block because this is the one that came out of the car.
So now here's your current project car. I know you had told me there was only 1,800 of these built. Tell our audience what makes this car so rare.
Well, this particular 427 engine is a 425 horsepower engine. It's a solid lifter motor. It's referred to as the RPO L72. Now, this particular car is a super sport, but a lot of these engines went into Biscaynes and they were campaigned as drag racers.
Wow.
And were very, very successful.
So how many cars do you currently own 1966 Chevys?
Well, I own the super sport convertible that we looked at earlier. I have a Caprice, and then I also have a Mist Blue 427 Caprice. This is a 1966 Chevrolet Caprice. It's equipped with a 427 engine, 390 horsepower. In 1966, they built about 107,000 of these cars. This particular car is equipped with the bucket seat option and turbo 400 transmission. It also has air conditioning, power windows, power seats, tilt telescopic steering column, and a kind of a rare console-mounted AM/FM stereo system. I took this car completely apart, body off frame, and pretty much did a nut and bolt restoration. Most of the trim on the car is NOS, along with most of the weather strip and emblems and so forth. So it's pretty much a labor of love, because when you do a nut and bolt car, you spend a lot more time working on things that the average person doesn't see. So I hope the final product shows all the effort, because I'm very proud of it. I love it.